Chris and Rupert, this is a bit of an experiment because it's the first time you've done one of these with two people together, and it's even more of an exciting thing when two from the same family. Now, I gather that both of you live in different parts of Buckinghamshire, or just over the border in Hertfordshire. Chris, tell us where you live.
I'm currently living with my wife Penny in Presswood, which is in the Chiltern Hills, and it's not far from Amersham, where I was born and worked virtually all my life. Beautiful countryside.
And Rupert, you actually live in Rickmansworth, you said, yes?
Yeah, that's right. Sort of a bit close to London, but still very easy to get to our production facilities in Amersham, and also to get into London as well, where many of our clients reside. So it works out well.
And that's what, on the Metropolitan line, is it all?
Yes, exactly. Right,
so do each of you, or do both of you, put it that way, know where I mean if I talk about High and Over?
Yes, it's one of the
that wonderful Art Deco house at the bottom of the hill, Amersham Hill, yes?
Yeah, I know exactly where you mean.
Yes. Well, I'm a bit of an architecture freak. So when we came to Amersham, we saw that, which was marvellous. And we also went to the rather nice town museum and the Quaker Meeting House. So you were at school, Rupert, locally near?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I went to school in Amersham as well, at their grammar school at the top of the hill. And of course, there's Old Amersham, which is where a lot of their historic buildings are down the bottom of the hill.
Absolutely, it's very attractive, Old Amersham, very nice. And you were a bit further away, but not too far, in Berkhamsted.
I went to school in Berkhamsted. At that time, my parents lived on a farm in Bellingdon, so I'm actually a farmer's son in a sense, and I was fortunate enough to go to Berkhamsted, which were some of the most enjoyable years of my early life.
And was that boarding?
No, it wasn't. Boarding was always a threat. If I misbehaved further, I would have boarded, but no, I was near enough to be a day boy, and I used to cycle to work, to school in those days, and cycle off to do some rowing and some rugby and cricket.
Where was your father a farmer?
Well, he bought a farm in Bellingdon, which is just outside Chesham, which was an amazing thing because he was born with a severe disability. He had severe spina bifida and hydrocephalus. So why someone not able-bodied would buy a farm made him a pretty amazing man. I think it made my mother an even more amazing woman because she did a huge amount of work.
And you went on from Berkhamsted to Bristol Business School, is that right?
Well, I went to Watford College to do a printing course for 3 years. I was always going to go into printing. I came out of school with A-levels in chemistry, physics, botany and zoology, and apparently that's just what you need to go into the print industry. And so I spent 3 years there. And then having qualified there, I got a job in London working for Charles Letts initially, the diary manufacturer, and then at IPC Magazines as a publisher. And I ended up looking after a stable of magazines, including Country Life, Horse and Hound, Riding, Yachting Monthly.
Was IPC part of the Mirror Group?
They were part of Reed then, Reed International.
Reed. Okay, yeah. And I mean, Watford had a bit of a printing reputation because there weren't Sun Printers and Oddhams in Watford, is that right?
Yes, they were huge employers in their day. And there was quite a bit of rivalry between Watford College of Printing, of Technology as it was called then, and LCP, London College of Printing. I was a Watford boy because it's not far from me. Others were London.
Now, Rupert, you had a slightly different track because you went up to Leeds to read biology. And did that mean that you had an interest at some point in going in that direction or not really?
Yeah, to be honest, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do at school, and I knew as a subject I did quite well in, and I enjoyed all the David Attenborough documentaries. So I thought I'll go and study that for a few years, and yeah, it served me right, and then came out of it and went straight into a job in financial services. So not maybe the logical career progression, but that's where I went.
Yeah, well, people always say that if you do a degree, it teaches you to think. I'm sure that must be true, at least to some extent. You sometimes do wonder a bit, don't you? Because you do meet people who've got a degree, and you're not sure how much thinking they do. But there you go. Yes, and then so yeah, um, and did you go straight to Deloitte's?
Yeah, I actually did. I had a year actually working while I worked out where I was going to go. I had a year working in Halstan then when I was probably about 23. And then I got on Deloitte's graduate scheme and trained up to be a qualified chartered accountant, and then stayed with them for about 7-8 years.
Right. And you talked about Let's Diaries, Chris, at the beginning. I presume that, yes, diaries are still printed, aren't they?
Yes, I think they are. And although there is this tendency to put everything online these days, I think there's a resurgence of people carrying paper around to help them organize their day. So diaries are still printed, notebooks are still printed, and thank goodness they are.
But not Let's Diaries, or are they?
Yes, I believe Let's Diaries are still going. And
are they? Right.
What I believe they are as well.
Yeah.
Are they? Yeah. Yeah.
What Let's used to do was to sell their diary to large corporations, but to have a bespoke 8 pages or 4 pages in the front of each diary, which made it a Texaco diary or a Beecham's diary or a Glaxo diary.
Yeah. Yes, I remember that sort of thing. In fact, I think my father, who was an advertising manager for a big textile company, they would be sometimes going to people for things like that. What do we now call those sort of things? Bespoke, or partly bespoke anyway. Yeah.
Yes, the main bones of it didn't change.
No. So, Rupert, you decided that at some point, presumably, that you hadn't really sold your soul to Deloitte's or to accountancy or whatever. What happened there?
I actually had a great time there. You know, I was in the middle of London in my 20s, and it was very much the work hard, play hard mentality. But after about 7 or 8 years, you know, I just had a look at my career and what I wanted to get out of it, and had a look at some of the things that were happening at Halstan, and Chris and I started to have conversations, and the idea of, you know, working for a family business which I'd grown up with, and being able to have an influence at, at the top level of a business really excited me. And yeah, we were probably in discussions, weren't we, for probably about the best part of a year, and then decided it was the right move to do, and yeah, took the plunge, and I've been there ever since.
And Chris, you have 2 sons, the other of whom I think is quite a talented musician. But when Rupert came to you and said, "Oh, I think I might like to come into the family business," what was your reaction?
Well, I think it meant that I probably wouldn't own a yacht, because we wouldn't be selling the business. Not that I ever wanted one, to be honest. I was pleased. I wanted him to be sure that this is what he wanted to do, rather than reaching perhaps a conclusion that Deloitte's wasn't right for him and feeling in any way obliged to join a family business. He is now the 4th, maybe even possibly the 5th generation of our business, and it comes with a certain amount of baggage, and you have to get used to the baggage of a family business. So I didn't want him to feel in any way obliged. So we had some long and serious chats about a family business and what it was about. and I was certain that we couldn't pay him the sort of money that he was earning at Deloitte's. And in the end, we agreed that he would join the business for a year, and it would be a year when he could have a thorough look at the business. And at the end of that year, I said, I now want a decision as to whether you want to stay with the business or not. And if you stay with the business, I need 5 years. And after that, you can do what you want. And the idea was, within those 5 years, I would be able to get out of the business. Hasn't quite panned out, Rupert. I'm still there to a certain degree.
Were there any, did you make any wry comments, Chris, when he came to you and said he wanted to come to the business?
No, they talk about selling your soul to Deloitte, and Deloitte certainly demand their pound of flesh from you. They pay you very well, but I think they treat you like a Heidelberg press, really. They gun you as hard as they can. They maintain you very well by oiling your salary and paying you bonuses. But at the end of the day at Deloitte, once you're worn out, there's a new crop of graduates coming in, and they will be the new kids on the block. I think with a family business, it's a much longer game, but there is every bit the commitment that you have to give to a family business.
And Rupert, I have some very good friends in quite a large family who you may know the company, based in Norwich, Jarrolds.
Yes,
and,
I know them well. I had a meeting actually with Charles Gerald of the BPIF earlier today. Yeah,
because your father was with BPIF too, I see. So yes, and I mean, when I first knew the Jarrolds, there were 3 brothers, and one of them was responsible. Anthony looked after the publishing business, and Peter looked after printing, and Richard looked after the department store in Norwich. And now we've got to the situation, I think, where there are still lots of the family involved, but the only thing left is the department store. So I suppose one of the things I was going to ask you, Rupert, is that as the at least 4th, possibly 5th generation member of your family, how is it possible still to make something as intensive, labour intensive, or perhaps it isn't labour intensive, as printing profitable in Britain?
I think, to be honest, the technology in the last 10 years has just changed beyond recognition now. A lot of our investment is going into sort of highly automated workflows. The people we're employing, it used to be, print minders, people who could operate these, heavy presses, heavy machinery. It's not so much like that now. A lot of the people they're coders, they're workflow specialists, they're integrators, they're good at working with, for our customers, e-commerce platform, right down to the printed book. So it's trying to get those sort of ducks in a row. And if we can do that and sort of provide solutions to our customers, as opposed to here's a printed book, we suddenly start to add more value.
Now, last week, Rupert, I was having a conversation with Gerard Heaney, who had been the CEO of Heidelberg UK. Are Heidelberg a company that you would buy equipment from, or are they a particular specialist sort?
Heidelberg have always, been, the gold star litho press manufacturers. Certainly in the book market and in publishing, run lengths are going down and down and down. Publishers want to hold less stock. They want to print more often and to order. So the technology is much more sort of digitally focused. So we're probably buying more of that type of equipment than Heidelberg presses, but we have them in our factory as well, and certainly have had them through our history.
And you stand sort of midway, presumably. I'm talking to both of you now, really, between the technology that you need for actually doing the work and the publishers for whom you're doing the work. Is that it?
Yes, I think we do. And the boundaries between publishing, printing and distribution are getting greyer and greyer. So as we drive, as Rupert puts in this technology, and we've got a company full of equipment that's not plugged in yet, we're waiting for engineers and so on. As this new equipment comes online, we find ourselves as distributors. We weren't originally distributors, but if you're only printing one book, you're not going to send that to a distributor for him to send out to someone else. There's just not the value in the chain to do it. So you send it out directly to the end user now, and we're doing an increasing amount of that.
Now, how did you end up with a company being called Halstan?
Well, it's a pretty corny story. My grandfather, Harold Smith, came back from the Great War. Before he left, he was an apprenticed music engraver to his father. But he couldn't finish his apprenticeship, and he came back after the war, and he couldn't get his job back to complete his apprenticeship. So he started engraving music on his own. And he was actually outlawed by the Master Music Printers and Engravers Association because he was supplying music, but he hadn't completed his apprenticeship. So he really was a bit of a rebel at the time, but he carried on. And they tried to stop him engraving music, and he invented a new process to create the music image. And if you look at 100 Carols for Choirs and the C.H. Trevor organ method, the image there is created by this, what was called the Halstan process. And it involved stencils and creating the image in a very large size that was then going to be photographed down. So he needed to employ a photographer. So Harold employed his brother Stanley, and it became Hal and Stan.
I see. Right. And tell me now, Rupert, you're a Freeman and a Liveryman, or a Freeman?
Just a Freeman at the moment. I think I was going to do. I want to become a Liveryman, and then COVID sort of got in the way, so it's gone on the back burner.
Oh, well, don't worry. And there's no reason why, because only the other day I made yesterday evening I closed a new Liveryman, so it can happen even in these peculiar days. And you've been a Liveryman for how long then, Chris?
Not as long as you might think. I think it's less than 10 years.
Right.
And probably the mistake I made, having discovered the stationers, I spent a lot of time involved with the BPIF in their various committees and national boards and so on. But having discovered the stationers, largely through a good friend of mine, of course, William Alden, who I knew very well back in the printing days, I joined it too late. And I suggested to Rupert that he might like to look at it a little earlier than I did. So I'm delighted he's a Freeman now, and he will have a lot of enjoyment from the stationers.
Yeah, I'm so pleased too, Rupert. And there are quite a few people around your sort of age, which is really good, because you can plan things together, plot things together, good things for the future and so on.
Yeah, there's a young stationers. I'm still thrilled. At 38, I get to be considered young, but a young stationers WhatsApp group, and there's new members joining every week, and there's actually a really vibrant community there. And there were quizzes planned during the lockdown and all sorts of things. So yeah, it's been really good. Of course, we Halstan had our 100th, our centenary celebrations at Stations Hall, which is.
Yeah, what better place?
My number one fond memory of.
What better place to do it? So now, exactly. Each of you, you're a musical family, really. Rupert, what are the things that sort of get you going outside your work? What other things? Is music one of them, or?
Yes, I think most of the actual musical talent in our family, my brother took, to be honest. So I can do a bit of it, but nowhere to the same level as him, or in fact any of our major clients. But I'm a keen traveller. I always use my holidays to abroad and see as much of the world as possible. That's always something I've taken sort of great enjoyment in, and I run and cycle a fair amount. Yeah.
And Chris, you're also musical.
To a degree. My grandfather and father were great pianists. I don't play the piano. I find myself the owner of 2 Steinway grand pianos and can't play either of them. But I did sing in our choir for quite a long time, and I listen to more and more classical music, which I enjoy. And now in semi-retirement or virtual retirement, I now find myself crossing the divide and becoming a publisher and publishing books on classical music.
I saw that, yes. And also you're thinking of joining, well, in fact, you're in the process of joining the Musicians' Company.
Yes, a very good friend of mine was a past master of the Musicians' Company, a man called Leslie East, and he's helping me with the publishing side, and he's invited me to join them.
Well, a good friend of mine, I think very soon, is about to become the master, Graham Knowles, who was the Dean of St Paul's for a bit.
Yes, yes.
And so I was chairman of Hymns Ancient and Modern, so that we made our money, as it were. Although we had a number of publishing arms, we made our money from hymn books. Is that the sort of thing that Halstan do, Rupert, or not really?
Yes, we do a lot of that sort of work. We do a lot of choral work, a lot of orchestral pieces. Yeah, right the way through the spectrum, and you know, there are very specialist criteria that music and music books need to be produced to, which are different from your normal paperbacks. So that are specialisms which we've built up over the last 100 years, and why we're so key in that market.
We've done a lot.
Yes.
Sorry, we've done a lot of work for Hymns A&M, and I can remember a man in Norwich. His name was Gordon. Someone.
Gordon Knights.
Gordon Knights. Yes,
Yes.
I go and see Gordon regularly, and we used to do. We never printed Hymns A&M because that was usually up at Beccles or Clowes or somewhere like that.
That's right, Clowes. Yes.
But we did a lot of the music setting for it.
Yeah.
We also did a lot of music setting. Well, we set the entire Methodist hymn book, and if ever there was a case of graphic design going slightly wrong, it was that book. The choice of the text in that book was Palatino, and Palatino is quite a large typeface. And what it meant was that you couldn't get 2 verses side by side on the page, and as a result, all the verses had to go under each other, and we ended up with a hymn book that was about 3 inches, 4 inches thick. If you look at the Methodist hymn book, it is huge.
Hymns A&M have actually, we've published, I say we, I retired from being the chairman exactly a year ago, but we've published hymn books for the Methodist Church, for the one of the churches in Northern Ireland. So we, yeah, we've got a wide range. One of the things I think is really exciting and interesting is the fact that your family running through those 4 generations. And that's why I mentioned the Jarrells, because it's quite an achievement, I always think, and not something you can ever press, obviously, to actually see that same sort of, you know, gene of whatever what it might be, whether it's printing or publishing or running all the way through. And having sufficient talent each time and interest for the next generation to take it on.
One of Rupert's concerns when he joined the business was he said, I've got a couple of concerns. One is we get on very well as a family, and in joining the business, I don't want to find that in any way destroys our family relationships. And that was really quite important for him. And the other point he said was, am I really going to be doing the same job for the rest of my life? And the answer is no, because you can change your job. The business will change. And the only way we've been able to survive as a family business is to change.
So that's exactly, Rupert, what you were saying a bit earlier, that the whole process of printing across the board, but also in your area, has been revolutionised, really.
It has, and that the history element, it's, you know, it's very nice, and we put it on a website, and it's something we are personally quite proud about. But for our customers, they care more that we continue to stay relevant for them, that we try and change and alter our offering to whatever their demands are at the time. So yeah, the business is always ebbing and flowing and changing, and you know, it's up to us to respond to the changing world and changing demands. And I think we've done that by and large very, very well over the years. And I think that's you know, one of the reasons we're held in quite high regard.
And you're still here, as it were.
I'm still here, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think there are two things I celebrate as we come to the end of our conversation. One is that amazing thing about being a family business and going on into another generation with new things, new ideas, and so on. And also having both of you as Freeman, and now I hope very soon both of you as liverymen in Stations Command. I keep pushing it so that, you know, to remind you that I'd love to see it happening before I cease to be the master. That might just be possible.
I think I needed my birth certificate to be a liveryman, so I need to dig that out. But I can confirm I was born, so that's hopefully okay.
And you're a Freeman of London, are you? City of London.
Chris is, aren't you?
Oh, well, you'll need to be too.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, but that won't be I'm sure you can probably do that on. You can do it online now, I think. Well, both of you, thank you so much. It's a completely new experience doing it with two people. And as I said, both of you in the same family, both of you stationers. Look forward to meeting you properly when all this thing finishes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Steve.
Thank you. Really.
I hope next time you're in church.
Yeah. Okay, we would say.
I hope next time you're in church and singing some of this marvellous music, you'll know now where it's printed.
Indeed, I'll thank Halstan each time I sing a verse of a hymn. Thank you both very much indeed.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.